By now, you probably know that the golden age of internet culture has fallen. But did you know that the internet as a whole is actually dying? A study in 2021 showed that only 57.7% of users on the internet were human, with harmful bots making up 27.7% of the internet. And recently the rise of bots on the internet is growing, with the proportion of humans being the lowest it's ever been in the last 8 years. As people are now estimating that since 2021, bots now make up 64% of the internet, leading to influencers like Karen Metri popping off recently by using a fake AI version of herself to sell to fans, allowing followers to pay $1 a minute to talk to the ChatGPT 4 version of herself, signifying how fake the internet's become in recent years, with anything actually real being censored into silence. Just recently, big tech, the media, and government-funded third parties were actually proven to all be colluding to censor Americans' freedom of speech. And this is just the tip of the iceberg here, because what we see today on the internet is a far cry from what it was just 10 years ago. Because originally the internet was a form of expression. It was a place where anyone could be themselves, completely liberated from the world of government censorship, corporations, whilst permeating all the information in the world to everyone. Even though originally the internet was born out of a military research project funded by the Advanced Research Projects Agency, now known as DARPA, and the whole goal of the internet was to create a network that could survive a nuclear attack. However, this quickly grew into something revolutionary, because soon in the 1970s, the concept of packet switching was developed, which allowed data to be broken up into small blocks or packets and sent over the network. This made the network more efficient and reliable. Then in 1974, the Transmission Control Protocol Internet Protocol was first introduced, which became the standard language for data transmission over the internet, setting the groundwork for the birth of the World Wide Web. Because as the internet expanded beyond the scope of military and academic fields, private users started to use it. And so in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee, a British computer scientist, invented the World Wide Web, a system of interlinked hypertext documents accessed via the internet. And that's why once the 90s came around, the internet truly went mainstream. In 1991, the World Wide Web was made available to the public, and it exploded in popularity. Businesses everywhere jumped on it. It was a new gold rush, as the internet was seen as a tool that would empower individuals, promote freedom of expression, and facilitate the growth of businesses. The first web browser, Mosaic, was launched in 1993, and Mosaic made the web so much more accessible to users. And because of this birthed the internet's most iconic companies. Companies like Amazon in 1994, Yahoo, eBay, and eventually Google in 1998. And it was in this same period that the Californian ideology was taking off, a term that was coined around the mid-90s by media theorists Richard Barbrook and Andy Cameron, who used the term to describe a new political and social philosophy emerging from the San Francisco Bay Area, the heart of this booming internet industry. Now, they describe this philosophy as being a blend of the freewheeling spirit of the hippies and the entrepreneurial zeal of the yuppies, mixing up the countercultural radicalism of the 60s with new economic liberalism. And this ideology was catalyzed by the liberating and freedom-loving technology of the internet. In fact, this is why companies like eBay, Yahoo, PayPal, and Google were often associated with this ideology, as they championed the power of the internet to disrupt traditional industries and democratize access to information and services around the world. And because of the huge potential of the internet, this birthed the rise of social media in the 2000s, with sites like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter transforming the way people communicate and share information. And back then there was no censorship. The internet was the Wild West. And this is when we saw the birth of internet culture, with icons like Pepe the Frog being born. However, before we continue, I want to quickly tell you about something. Every day, I spend most of my time constantly writing scripts for these YouTube videos, and recently I've been writing a bunch for my new newsletter. And most of the time, I'm using Grammarly to help me out with this. I've genuinely been using them for years, and I'm sure you already know what Grammarly is. But do you know about their new product, Grammarly Go? Grammarly Go offers personalized generative AI assistance that has really leveled up my productivity. As a YouTuber, I've been using Grammarly Go to get through my emails way faster. And what's even better is that it's free to use. As a free user, you will get 100 prompts per month to try out Grammarly Go. And here's how I use Grammarly Go to help me create high quality work. If I'm hit by writer's block and want some new ideas for the scripts, Grammarly Go is so helpful. I just give it some prompts about how to structure my script, and it will give me a very helpful outline instantly. And one of the biggest differentiators from other AI tools is its ability to customize your preferred style of communication by clicking Set Voice to personalize your tone and determine how you want to sound. And if you need some inspiration, just input a prompt and Grammarly Go provides innovative ideas to get your creative juices flowing. You'll be amazed at what you can do with Grammarly Go. So sign up at grammarly.com/moon and get 20% off Grammarly Premium. Now, Pepe the Frog initially emerged in 2005 in Matt Fourier's comic A Boy's Life. The comics feature Pepe and his anthropomorphic animal friends, embodying typical college lads. One comic showed Pepe responding to a question about his restroom visit, to which he retorted to "feels good, man," a phrase that would later become synonymous with one of the earliest social media sites, 4chan, and the frog quickly grew in popularity with 4chan users, resembling the average 4chan user's attitude at the time. And by 2009, Pepe and his catchphrase had entered the realm of popular culture, securing an entry in Know Your Meme. And with Pepe's increasing popularity, various versions of the frog started appearing, including sad, smug, and angry Pepes, which further catapulted Pepe's fame across all platforms like Reddit, Twitter, Tumblr, and any other social media platform that you can think of. However, Pepe's meaning started to morph. Through 4chan's binding spirit of repression, edginess, and free expression, Pepe began to symbolize more than just a meme. It was beginning to become an emblem of free speech, radical thought, conspiracy theories, and just your average internet user who appreciated and loved the internet this time. This was the golden years of the internet. Even 4chan itself was never even a business. It was just born from the efforts of a 15-year-old Christopher Poole, who sought to connect with fellow enthusiasts of Japanese culture, using the internet to create a new type of community. In fact, this was such a bad business model that Poole was actually losing money, with a debt of over $20,000. But this didn't matter because 4chan was never actually about profits. It was about uniting like-minded individuals to discuss Japanese culture and anime, offering a perfect outlet for marginalized individuals across the globe to express their passions freely. They could connect with anyone anywhere, and internet culture was booming. And soon the scope of 4chan's discussions quickly expanded to include video games, music, literature, fitness, politics, and sports. At a time when the internet was mostly used by outcasts, it brought together outcasts from every niche, as this was a period before iPhones, TikTok videos, and the corporatization of the internet, making this community of outsiders on 4chan revolutionary. And that's why, unsurprisingly, 4chan was the breeding ground for internet culture. It was the pioneer of this, with many early memes coming from 4chan defining the internet landscape. Another one aside from Pepe the Frog was the lolcat meme, combining a cat image with text. And as these memes entered the realm of public consciousness, it became clear that 4chan was no longer just a haven for niche groups, its influence was infiltrating popular culture. And over time, 4chan's memes evolved into trolling. For instance, the infamous Rick Roll was born when a 4chan user shared a YouTube link which was supposed to lead to a GTA 4 trailer, but instead directed users to Rick Astley's song Never Gonna Give You Up. Another example is when the bizarre song by Tay Zonday, Chocolate Rain, was posted to 4chan, and 4chan users all came together to boost its YouTube ranking for fun, so much so that it actually became a mainstream song and went viral everywhere, even getting a feature in South Park.
I don't think so. Nothing takes priority over Chocolate Rain.
Another infamous trolling episode involved Mountain Dew's marketing campaign, where customers voted for this new name of their drink, with all of the 4chan users banding together to rig this vote, demonstrating their ability to disrupt mainstream marketing campaigns and mainstream popular culture as a whole. However, the trolling didn't stop at harmless pranks on businesses. 4chan users would also embark on extreme forms of trolling against corporations, governments, and any group they seemed to be harming the world, with a group of anonymous 4chan users forming the group now known as Anonymous. At first, they began orchestrating mass trolling events, which finally brought 4chan into the mainstream spotlight, as they infamously targeted the Church of Scientology in 2008 as they launched a DDoS attack on their websites, whilst also rickrolling the church. And then Anonymous began publishing YouTube videos in a robotic anonymous voice, which went viral, sparking global protests against the church. And it didn't just stop there. Anonymous went on to disrupt major banks, support WikiLeaks, aid the Arab Spring riots, and even hacked 485 Chinese government websites in protest against the oppressive treatment of citizens. 4chan, once a haven of weeaboos, had expanded its reach to set precedents for memes, trolling, and real-world accountability. They were the pioneers of free speech. What began as an outlet for the marginalized few was now a platform challenging tyrannical governments and predatory organizations, giving a voice to the voiceless. And this is what the golden age of the internet was about. This was the ethos. The freedom-loving, edgy nature of the internet was what made it so golden. However, it was around the mid-2010s that the dead internet theory claims the online world became a repetitive and homogeneous capitalist machine, where almost everything became recycled and nothing was original. Which is why, as the internet evolved, it seems like many of the utopian dreams and Californian ideology became rotten from the inside. All the utopian dreams of freedom, liberty, and a more intelligent population seem to just fade into the distance. Just look at the companies and industries that the internet has created. Instead of connecting people and making their lives better, the internet has created new, even more predatory and exploitative ways of running a business. Airbnb and Uber are often cited as examples of the sharing economy or gig economy, where services are provided by individuals on a freelance or part-time basis, often through a digital platform. And then these companies present themselves as community-oriented businesses that simply connect people who have specific needs, like a ride or a place to stay, with others who can meet those needs. Airbnb, for instance, positions itself as a platform that allows homeowners to rent out their homes or rooms to travelers, fostering a sense of the traveling community, offering a more personal and local experiences than traditional hotels. Similarly, Uber presents itself as a service that connects drivers and riders from all around the world, providing a more convenient and potentially cheaper alternative to the traditional taxi industry. However, what's becoming clear is that one of the best marketing strategies for these companies is to co-opt the idea of community for their own economic benefit. And whilst they do provide a platform for individuals to offer services, they also take such a huge cut of their earnings, and the workers or service providers take on much of the risk and receive few of the protections typically associated with employment. For example, Uber drivers are considered independent contractors rather than employees, which means they are responsible for their own vehicle costs and don't receive benefits like health insurance or paid time off. Similarly, Airbnb hosts take on the risks associated with renting out their homes, such as property damage or problematic guests, all while contributing to the rising rent costs that we're seeing in almost every major global city. Gentrification is becoming the norm through Airbnb, completely decimating the communities that were actually there, all for a new form of supposed community through short-term rentals instead of long-term housing, generating waves of people who are completely atomized, not knowing their neighbors, outpriced by random foreigners, all while destroying the culture and traditions that these neighborhoods fostered. And you're seeing protests against this all over the world. And that's why these companies have been known to engage in an aggressive lobbying effort to avoid any regulations that apply to traditional industries like taxi and hotels, arguing that such regulations don't apply to them because they're simply tech platforms, not service providers. The internet and the way it's been exploited by these companies are killing industries across the world. Both the customers and the workers are left worse off with higher prices, lower pay, and a whole lot of resentment. But somewhat ironically, the internet is dying as well. Link rot is a term used to describe the phenomenon where hyperlinks on the internet become obsolete or broken over time. Now, this can occur for a variety of reasons, such as when the web page that the link is pointing to is removed, deleted, or restructured, or when the website itself is taken down. And this can also happen when the domain is not renewed, or when there are server issues. However, a recent study by Old Dominion University's Department of Computer Science found that link rot is a significant issue online, because according to the study, nearly 11% of shared resources will be lost after the first year of publishing, and after that, 0.02% will be lost per day. This means that over the course of 20 years, it's estimated that 98.4% of links on the internet may experience some form of link rot, meaning that a huge portion of the information that you see online is effectively disappearing. And this isn't just limited to casual browsing or general information. This has serious implications for various sectors in the world, including legal and academic fields. For instance, more than 50% of US Supreme Court opinions contain dead links, completely wiping out various sources to support any arguments or decisions made, in fields where this is necessary. As if these links are broken, then it becomes incredibly hard to verify the information, or to follow the reasoning of the court. Similarly, over 70% of Harvard academic journals contain some sort of link rot, and these academic journals rely on numerous citations to support their findings. Without this, all academic integrity is lost. If these links are broken, then it makes it incredibly difficult to ever verify any information online, or even to build upon this research. In any case though, it makes our idea of the internet being this everlasting record of humanity seem out of date. Maybe this isn't death though. In fact, link rots reflect the way everything else changes over time. Just like the cells in your body, new web pages and links are born, whilst the old ones die off to be replaced. However, the problem here is that we're not keeping track of the important parts, and we're not replacing the old internet with anything of value. It's the content of the new internet, the internet that we see today, that counts. And when you take a closer look at the state of the modern internet, it's easy to come to the conclusion that it's dead, and that it's been this way for some time. And to understand why the internet has died, we need to look into the dead internet theory. Now, the dead internet theory is a relatively recent idea that originated from an obscure online forum. The theory was first proposed in a post that suggested that the internet as we knew it died around 2016 or 2017, with the post claiming that the internet is now largely controlled by artificial intelligence and bots that generate content to manipulate people's thoughts and actions, suggesting that many online influencers aren't even real, but simply paid shills, or working as part of government disinformation units. Now, quickly the theory gained traction and was picked up by various online communities and eventually made its way into the mainstream media discussions.
You, me, everyone. We're living in a real-life matrix designed to distract you from the truth, that we're just drones in a digital anthill. We live, work, and die so that the wealthy and powerful can grow more wealthy and powerful.
And despite its dubious origins, the dead internet theory resonated with many people's experiences of the internet. It seemed to capture a sense of disillusionment and unease about the changes that have occurred in the online world. And the core idea of this theory is that the internet changed from the creative and quirky world of the late 90s and early 2000s to a repetitive, homogeneous, empty, capitalistic machine. You see, according to the theory, almost everything we see online is just looking to generate clicks for financial or political gain. Personal websites and blogs have become redundant due to the rise of social media sites like Facebook and Instagram, and many creative ideas have fallen by the wayside, looking to be replaced by an empty, hollowed out, corporatized version of the same thing. And I mean, there's truth to this. Currently, 43% of all internet bandwidth is consumed simply by 6 mega corporations: Netflix, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple, controlling almost 50% of the internet. And through their highly developed algorithms, split testing, and billions in research, they know how to addict you, to suck away your attention. And they are the largest players in creating our dopamine-fried generation, developing the foundations for our constant seeking of stimulation. I mean, it's gone so bad that in a recent study, participants were left alone with their thoughts for 16 to 15 minutes, and about 50% of these people found the experience incredibly boring. So boring, in fact, that when given the option to self-administer an electric shock, a significant number of participants chose to do so rather than just sit with their own thoughts for 6 minutes. Because our generation, a generation that's grown up on the modern internet, has become so accustomed to the constant distractions and noise that we'll flee into the hands of these companies. As we never want to be bored, we have been trained to never want to be with our own thoughts. And yet boredom and solitude, being with your own thoughts, is what fosters creativity and ingenuity. Isaac Newton and J.K. Rowling, who made historic discoveries or created noble works of art, always had this creativity during periods of solitude and boredom. I mean, just staring at your wall for 10 minutes can give you more insights about yourself, your habits, and future than any social media site can possibly provide. And yet, all while you have your dopamine fried, your attention span destroyed, your thoughts decimated. This then allows people to collect all of your data and chop it up and sell it for billions. And who is this data even going towards? Websites generating a culture of freedom, liberty, and authenticity? No. It goes to those who are robbing your future potential by destroying your dopamine. Social media sites that have monopolized the internet, preying on a generation's destroyed brain chemistry. Companies destroying your mental health. Like the culture of Instagram, for example, that from Instagram's inception has promoted a culture of photoshopping your face, leading to the widespread use of the term Instagram reality. There's even a subreddit with over 1 million subscribers that exposes the fabricated, idealized life that is so commonplace on Instagram. And it's not just faces and bodies that are fabricated, it's even people's audiences. I mean, it's remarkably easy to buy bot accounts as followers, a practice that a ton of celebrities engage in. For instance, it's estimated that Ariana Grande has over 65 million fake followers, and it's all of these deceptions that contribute to an unrealistic standard on Instagram. And despite growing awareness of these falsehoods, they still subconsciously impact your mindset and mental health, as Instagram's 500 million regular users will constantly face a daily bombardment of unattainable standards, leading to the subconscious comparison to others' perfect yet fake lives. And there are consequences to this. According to recent research, among the 5 major social media platforms that young people use, Instagram was rated as the most detrimental to users' mental health, having the most severe effects on people's body image, which was also linked with depression and anxiety, all due to Instagram's toxic culture of perfectionism, something that has generated Zuckerberg untold billions. And what's even more disturbing is that Facebook, the parent company of Instagram, has been intentionally overlooking these issues on both platforms. In late 2021, an internal presentation for Instagram and Facebook employees was leaked, revealing shocking content and implications. The presentation not only showed that Instagram is harmful to young people, but also that Facebook has conducted detailed research on its effects. And the most damning statement it makes is that Instagram is, quote, harmful for a sizable percentage of teens, particularly teenage girls. For instance, 40% of teens now felt unattractive due to Instagram. And yet the weirdest part is that these teenagers are actually completely aware of the detrimental effects of Instagram, but they're still addicted by its algorithm, being compelled to use it for the fear of missing out, trapping hundreds of millions of people into a vicious cycle of constantly seeking the next dopamine hit and feeling left out and inadequate if you don't. Continually chasing the dopamine, fearing you're missing out, striving to outdo others, caught in this photoshopping loop that completely destroys your self-esteem and what little dopamine that's left in your brain. And yet what's even more alarming is that this evidence isn't even enough for Facebook. They're intent on exploiting even more of the population, because this is generating them hundreds of billions. And this was evidenced by their plans to release a version of Instagram for children under 13. This disturbing move was only delayed by the leak of the presentation. Otherwise, this probably would have been launched by now. Even though Facebook is very aware how unsafe Instagram is for teenagers, they're now going to target even more vulnerable and naive younger children, clearly demonstrating Facebook's disregard for its users and population. And the only reason they paused the release of this children's app was due to the public backlash, but once that eventually subsides, it's likely that we'll see the release of Instagram Kids soon after. And bear in mind, this company controls Instagram, WhatsApp, and soon the metaverse, boasting over 3.5 billion users across all of its platforms. Half of the entire world's population is now being influenced by this company. And how is this power being utilized? To destroy your mental health, destroy your dopamine, ruin your future potential, ruin your body image, and atomizing you from your community. And the more of these negative emotions that are harnessed by Facebook, this then fuels more division amongst people, more aggressive political divides, more back and forths, more internet drama, which then promotes more engagement, more addiction to the platform, and more negative emotions for everyone. But if you thought things can get any faker than they are now on the internet, wait until you see this, because right now, we're about to go into the next stage in internet culture, a stage that's arguably worse than the one we're already in, the age of AI and deepfakes. From Twitch streamers morphing into adult film stars, to Joe Rogan endorsing fraudulent products, and even some deepfakes that could genuinely trigger a massive global conflict, are now starting to pop up on all parts of the internet, like this clip for example.
First to be called in a sequence determined by national lottery will be men and women whose 20th birthday falls during calendar year 2023. Remember, you're not sending your sons and daughters to war. You're sending them to freedom. God bless our troops and God bless Ukraine.
Now the clip you just viewed is arguably one of the most dangerous uses of deepfakes the internet has ever seen, with this video going viral on Twitter, amassing over 8 million views. And it's these sorts of deepfakes that hold the potential to ignite real-world conflicts, because the power of these deepfakes to sway vast numbers of people is incredibly damaging to everyone. And it's unsurprising that countries like Russia are already starting to experiment with deepfakes as weapons. As early as 2021, European Parliament members were taken aback when they discovered that they had been talking to a deepfake of Putin critic Leonid Volkov. They thought they were speaking to this critic only to find out that this was just an AI robot, with the whole European Parliament being trolled. Exploiting the low resolution of video calls, 2 social media pranksters backed the Kremlin impersonator Volkov and held meetings with high-ranking officials across Europe. And the fact that this was a fabrication was only revealed much later after the meeting. And whilst this incident was highly embarrassing for those who were deceived, this luckily didn't cause too much damage, but it did show everyone the true threat of deepfakes and how this can crush democracy. Because this isn't the first time it's been used for these reasons, as Russia has actually decided to escalate the use of deepfakes in a bold attempt to tip the scales of war in their favour, like for example when they failed to force Ukraine into submission. And so Russia released a completely deepfake video of President Zelensky instructing Ukrainian troops to surrender to Russia, which marked the first time a state has so openly used deepfakes as a weapon to disseminate misinformation. And initially, it did seem to be working, with one post of the video garnering over 120,000 views on Twitter, and the comments believed it. In fact, Ukrainian news channels were even hacked and forced to broadcast the false surrender message before they were taken offline. And like anything in AI, right now we are witnessing the worst version of it. It's only going to get exponentially better. And so as this technology advances, it's going to become increasingly difficult to disprove and discredit these fakes, making their impact far more unpredictable. But it's not just propaganda we should worry about. This can be used for blackmail. It can be used to destroy people's entire careers, or even scam people. Like for example on TikTok, there's been countless Joe Rogan clips going around where he promotes these shoddy products, only for people to realize later on that it was just a deepfake after all. Now most of the deepfakes featuring Joe Rogan are harmless comedy, like this recent viral deepfake of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson discussing Bionicle.
Which Bionicle do you like the most? I really still like the classics. Takanuva, Tahu.
I don't know. Well, Axon. I really liked Axon. And Piraka. Remember Piraka?
Yeah, vicious creatures, those Piraka.
Yeah, but they were cool still. Like, remember the rap?
Yes, I remember the rap. It's like they were possessed. Did you know that Makuta is just the Maori, the Maori word for postmodern neo-Marxism?
Is that true? Jamie, pull that up. Is that true?
You bet your ass it is true.
However, one of the first deepfake scams to gain traction used Joe Rogan's likeness and speech for very shady purposes. In early February 2023, a video was uploaded that appeared to show Joe Rogan and a guest discussing a new male performance supplement and encouraging people to buy it on Amazon, and so many people got hoodwinked by the scam, as the video went viral on TikTok. Now it's uncertain how many people were fooled, but it definitely worked, boosting their sales dramatically, and the success and notoriety of this scam has led to a huge wave of copycats, which are only becoming more and more sophisticated over time as the AI rapidly grows its abilities. making it so that many of the videos you see online may not even be real anymore. Already we're seeing more and more videos on YouTube Shorts and TikTok that are just completely deepfaked, and it takes watching these videos several times to actually catch on. So what's this going to look like in 5 years from now? But for right now, they're not really manipulating public opinion on a huge scale just yet. Whilst the news does make deepfakes seem like some massive threat to free speech and truth, the real threat is the government's censorship that's been misleading people for years. As a recent report on the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency uncovered the ugly truth about government censorship. While the CISA was originally made to prevent cyber attacks on the US government's critical infrastructure, they've been pushing their duties a little bit further. The House investigation describes the shift beginning in 2017, when the obscure agency flew under the radar and began their efforts to combat foreign misinformation. Very soon though, the foreign part was ignored, justifying it as protecting the sanctity of the elections. They began monitoring and censoring US citizens and social media. The CISA colluded with big tech companies to spy on and push down posts supporting certain viewpoints or ideas. Things like the lab leak theory, which was denied for literally years while everyone was in lockdown. If you had a YouTube channel, you would be completely banned from YouTube forever, just like any other social media site for merely suggesting it. If you brought it up on YouTube, you could be banned on Instagram, Twitter, and any other social media site. All big tech companies colluded together to censor anyone discussing it, and it was only years later that the government admitted that it was most likely actually true. Companies like Meta and Google would take reports on this so-called misinformation and stop it from spreading or showing up on their platforms. The report then alleges that the CISA made every effort to evade detection, outsourcing the work to a shell company to exploit legal loopholes. It even describes a committee meeting at the CISA about how it was only a matter of time before someone realizes we exist and starts asking about our work, end quotes. The CISA even started using a new term, quote, malinformation. It describes factual, true information that's being spread without adequate context. They made this so that they could have false justification to flat out censor the truth. And whilst the report hasn't been proven yet, it does offer a whole lot of evidence. Email exchanges, records of meetings, it's all there to show how deep and widespread the censorship really became, as we've seen so many times with things like the Hunter Biden laptop story. But most importantly though, it illuminates one of the biggest threats to the internet, the use of the word misinformation as a label to censor anything the government doesn't want people to hear. It's the government through the CISA that decides what is and isn't misinformation, purely based on their own desires for what people should believe. And it's a tragedy that freedom of speech has become a partisan issue. This shouldn't be a right-wing talking point or a left-wing talking point. Everyone suffers from a repressed and corrupted society. And it's not just the US either. Most other countries have some sort of CISA alternative pulling the strings of public discourse. In the UK, it's called the Nudge Unit. In Australia, it's the Behavioral Economics Team. And we went into more detail on the Nudge Unit and other insidious methods of thought control in our Clockwork Orange video. But the bottom line here is that these attempts to control speech stand in direct opposition to the values the internet once represented. A culture of freedom, expression, and community is now having a painful slow death, suffocated by a glossy sheen of corporate and government influence.